I think when you first hear about Four Trails, it is just so unfathomable that someone can do 300K straight, that it attracts a lot of questions.
Physically, you're abusing your body in a way you shouldn't.
You can't really imagine how hard it is until you try it.
I've never in my whole life gone through such a pain.
It throws everything at you. Road, stairs, technical, ton of elevation. It beats the shit out of you.
No matter how good you are, no matter how well you're prepared, you can still fail.
You're pushing the edge of what's possible in human endurance.
How far do you push your body?
The longer the distance you go, the more factors come into play. Over the course of 300K, there's always going to be something that's going to go wrong.
72 hours is 3 days straight, non-stop.
That was when my mind just completely disintegrated.
I think it's quite tempting to take on the challenge and not really realize when a challenge is appropriate versus completely ridiculous.
I've never done something as hard as the Four Trails.
Four Trails, hands down, is one of the world's toughest events. For the sport of trail running, the ultimate ball breaker.
Oh, how do I feel about the nominations? I mean, incredibly proud. Yeah, it's almost like a bit surprising as well. You know, it's never something that when we set out to make this film, we never set a goal of, okay, we want this film to be in award shows or anything like that.
No.
Yeah, so you know, we just wanted to make a really good film, showcase trail running and this event as well as we could. For me personally, being my first film as well, it was just a big challenge even to finish it from the whole production stage to pre-production. So, you know, even just finishing a film at all was already such an incredible achievement. And then, you know, when we first released it, we got amazing critic reviews, then lots of fans and audience members. They also came and they loved it. And, you know, everything just kept getting higher and higher, and then you got these 2 nominations. So really incredible, but never something we were like, we're trying to get awards. So yeah, just really proud that we've managed to get there. I mean, every time I finish something, I feel like, yeah, I finished it, but then at the same time, you have the next stage. So, you know, this project for me is something which I filmed, directed, edited, but I'm also marketing in it. You know, I have Edco helping for Hong Kong as well, but I'm still reaching out to distributors. I'm still very hands-on with the film. So in some ways, yeah, when I did that first screening of the film, that was like, okay, the film is done. Now let's see what the reaction's like. And then it was, you know, amazing. It's like, okay, what's the next thing? And so I don't know when that moment of it's finished will be.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Still keep doing.
Yeah, even, you know, sometimes even when I think, okay, this is the final part, then something else comes. You know, someone else wants to chat, or another interview, or, you know, the nominations now coming, and now I got to think about where to buy a suit because I don't own a suit. So now that's, you know,
yeah, you should
completely
prepare.
different.
Get your tuxedo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, bow tie.
Yeah, really tough question. I mean, of course, when you look at the numbers and the reactions, you're always like, yeah, I've made something great. But then, you know, being a filmmaker, you're always like, okay, well, I could have made that a little bit better, or, you know, then you get a little bit of critique from someone else who maybe they said something. So you're always going up and down like this. But overall, yeah, immense satisfaction, and definitely, you know, one of the biggest things that I found as a filmmaker, which I've never experienced before, is having the film in cinemas. but then I've attended so many Q&As with people. And just listening to people's feedback, not only about what they like about the film, they can talk about, oh, you've made Hong Kong look so beautiful, and the way that you've immersed us into this world, but the other things that they've told me of how the film has affected them, how they've taken the film and brought it into their everyday lives, or whether or not it reminds them of something. Those stories are much more impactful to me than anything else. And it's just, that's when it really hits you, like, okay, I have done something really special here, because there's all these people coming to me and telling me these things about the film. And I think that's really special. Yeah.
我覺得嗰陣時被影嘅時候，其實係事先知道係有一個咁樣嘅 documentary 嘅，因為 Robin 嗰陣時早幾年就有一出 Breaking 60啦，咁其實咧就已經係有呢一個紀錄片，咁所以咧其實去到10週年嗰一個咧，其實我都知道佢係會再做相類似嘅 documentary。咁因為我係2021年咧係第2次參加嘅，我其實2020年咧其實係已經有 NHK 嘅即係團隊去影 documentary， 咁所以其實嗰段時間雖然佢唔係影我，咁但係我都知道周圍都會有人咧係去影我哋個狀態，咁所以就因為有2020年 NHK 嗰個拍攝團隊嗰個狀態，咁所以咧去到2021咧 Robin 再去拍嘅時候咧，其實我覺得係即係好習慣嘅，係啦，同埋大家都即係佢哋亦都好尊重個賽會個規矩，就係唔會干預啲跑手嘅，因為如果佢拍攝途中佢係即係同我哋有太多嘅對話嘅話，其實somehow都係會 violate 咗嗰個規矩嘅，咁所以係咯，我覺得OK 嘅，冇乜特別嘅。
I had a little bit of experience from shooting Breaking 60, which was like a shorter version of Four Trails in 2017. And that film, I like to call that like my university degree. I was still young in my filmmaking career, and I went into that just wanting to make, a 10-minute video, which ended up being 40 minutes long. So I already had that experience of what this event is like. But then since that, I had friends take part in Four Trails. I was very close with Andre, the event director. And so I sort of knew locations where I could get specific things. So my aim with the film, there were like 3 parts to it in terms of filming wise. I wanted to get beautiful shots of Hong Kong, of them running in places where maybe people haven't seen before, but really nice aerial footage. Then the next places, I wanted to make sure that I could get into locations where I know that they would speak with me. So all the checkpoints, they're not actually checkpoints, but they're where they can get food or water. And then I also wanted to get places where I know that they're going to be, struggling or in a difficult position, because to the viewer, it's very difficult to show how challenging this is. Not all of them are like Chang swearing and this. They can actually go through it quite calm with a calm demeanor, but inside be struggling. That's like the difficulty of it. So I had those 3 parts where I wanted to film. And so one, I knew that from experience from previous years, then talking to Andre, but then also in the 6 months prior to filming the event, I would go on runs with the runners. So I wouldn't run with them, but for example, Stone did Macklehouse and Wilson Trail in one training run. So I went out with him and I went to the locations to almost practice shooting situations. So Taimo Shan, okay, this is really good with a drone. So let's get aerial footage here. Going up Needle Hill, let's do a handheld camera and get right up close with them, because then you can get facial expressions. Same with the twins. MTR, again, just handheld there. And so I sort of made this really big database of locations and then what I could film in each location. So whether it be beautiful shots, whether it be, okay, you can interact with them here, or whether or not it's just finding places where you're going to get emotion. So that was sort of the main sort of planning. But then, of course, you have to be really flexible. So on the shooting day, you never really know what's going to happen. You do have some idea of locations where things, in the past years, where, maybe they'll drop out or maybe they'll be struggling a little bit more or things like this. But again, you just don't know if it's going to happen. So you almost are planning. So we've definitely had people in places where we thought something is going to happen here and then nothing did. But then in another location, it all happened. So just making sure that you're planning for all of that. And I would also say that because I spent so much time with them before, that they also became very comfortable with me being around. So it wasn't just, when they're doing the 300 kilometers, I've never met them before, and then you put a camera in front of them and they don't want to speak. I mean, they wouldn't. But because, we got this friendship and they knew if they saw me there, then they'll be like, oh, hey, Robin, and then maybe tell me some information. And same with the other filmers too. So it's building that relationship and building the trust. And I'm so grateful that they all, trusted me with what I wanted to do, and therefore they were very open in giving information and how they were feeling throughout the event. I am sure there are hundreds of moments. Yeah. I mean, it's 300 kilometers, and you can't have a camera every inch of the trail. It's not possible. So even though, I planned in all these key locations, but for example, when Jacky and Salomon ran together they had that conversation.
Exactly.
How could you ever predict that particular moment?
No, absolutely impossible.
Impossible, yeah. So, that's where the interviews came in really nicely to help tell that story. But I'm sure, 18 runners all out there for 3 days, 3 nights, there will be countless stories, and it's just, up to us to do the best we can to capture, what we can. And I still think we got some incredible moments. I think Pong, in his interview, he was saying how he was vomiting and having diarrhea on the ferry over, but we didn't have anyone on that ferry because they were all else on Hong Kong. So that could have been a nice moment, but you can't think like that. Otherwise, you'll just be like, you'll never finish the film because you'll be like, I missed that. But you got to think about what you did get and find the best way to piece what you have got into telling this story.
嗱，其實我諗即係重點咁講啦，跑緊嘅時候咧，其實頭嗰3條徑咧，即係我都會有我嘅低潮，尤其是咧就係即係喺半夜嘅時候咧比較眼瞓。咁但係我對自己完成或者係快過前一年嘅時間，其實係有信心可以快過嘅。咁所以其實我頭嗰3條徑咧，嗰個諗法咧都係諗55個鐘度嘅啫。但係咧，周圍嘅人咧都會喺度問我你係咪其實想 breaking 50啊咁樣？咁但係其實我話唔係嘅。但係咧就係去到開始鳳徑嘅時候，即係梅窩嘅油桶嗰度啦。咁其實咧就有一個人咧叫 Julian， 就係我嘅 sponsor 嘅老闆咁樣。咁佢咧就講咗一句就係 You are the one to make history。咁咧就係呢句説話咧，突然之間咧，即係我開頭都唔知佢講咩嘅，但係直至到我出發嘅時候，我睇一睇隻錶咧，係39個鐘頭20分，我先明白佢講緊啲乜嘢。然之後咧，佢哋周圍即係啲鬼佬咧就喺度講咧，就係話你同 Solomon 其實即係仲爭可能45分鐘，佢個樣唔係好 fresh 㗎咋，你可以追得到。咁但係我都同佢話，佢做緊即係 under 50，我唔跟啊嚇，我即係跑完自己就算。咁嗰陣時可能就係最多都係諗51嘅啫。但係當我睇錶嘅時候咧，我就覺得咦唔係喎，真係有機會可以做到49個鐘啊！因為我嘅訓練入邊咧，我試過 full gear。亦都係飲晒廁所水咁樣 self support 咧，係可以做到鳳徑9個鐘嘅。所以因為呢一個數據咧，令到我知道咧，我有機會真係可以做到49個鐘嘅。咁所以咧，就一去到鳳徑嘅時候，一開跑咧，已經係喺個腦海入邊咧 mark up 晒所有嘅 checkpoint 嘅 cut off time 係幾點。咁跟住我就逐個 point 咧咁去追時間嘅。咁所以即係一路跑鳳徑嘅時候咧，已經係由開頭比較平和嘅狀態咧，去到一個你可以話戰鬥 mode 咁樣啦。咁再追到 Solomon 嘅時候咧，即係我會知道，咦，我真係去到咧 under 50嗰條 line 啦。咁同埋同一時間咧，我會期望就係同佢一齊拍住走嘅。但係最後都係我自己即係行先啦咁樣。 咁所以就即係一路就咁樣係追住啲 cut off time，咁啊直到咧就係去到大東山咧睇到即係一個人生最有意義嘅日出啦。咁跟住之後就慢慢落到去油桶，成個過程喺鳳徑呢個過程咧，其實都係比較緊張啦。好似係真係一個比賽嘅狀態啦，咁同埋就會係好嚴謹嘅，會有啲 moment 咧就同自己講話，我嘅速度、我嘅動作未夠快，要逼自己再快啲，眼瞓時候自己打自己塊面打醒為止。咁跟住去到油桶嗰一刻咧，就突然之間咧嗰個 mood 咧係由一個開心咧係轉做一個爆喊嘅狀態，因為咧係我喺咁多年，即係大約嗰陣時嚟講係16年跑山嘅經歷入邊咧，其實我未試過喺大嘅 event 入邊咧攞過冠軍嘅。咁即係話咧，呢一次係攞冠即係第一個完成啦，同埋咧就係可以寫入歷史嘅一個時間啦。咁再加上咧，就係喺當時完成咗之後嘅2個月咧，其實我就會移民去英國㗎啦。咁所以咧係一個百感交集嘅狀態，令到我咧嗰個情緒咧係要宣泄出嚟嘅，係啦。
I have to think about the first time I rewatched it. So because I edited it as well, I have to remind myself of the first time I put something together. So to give you a really good example, I edited Salomon's segment when he was in Sheko, when he was quitting. And then his wife got the voice messages. And so I edited that part and I was like, I really like this. This is really good. But then I went off and I did something else, a different part of the film. And then I was like, okay, it's time to rewatch what I've done and see how I feel. And I remember watching that Salomon part and getting goosebumps myself. And I was like, okay, this is good. And so I had to remind myself, don't play with this too much because you've done it good. That's how the audience, I hope they will react. And so, because I was editing it, I saw that part, 50 times before it finally went into the cinema. And then that part, I don't get goosebumps as much anymore because I've, watched it so many times. So I'm like, is it still good? Like if I'm not getting goosebumps now, is it
desensitized?
Yeah, desensitized. But I have to remember that first time that I did it, how it felt. And yeah, I can make some tweaks here and there, but the overall message, keep it like that. So, that's like a moment. And then the overall film, I think, even now when I watch it, it starts at the hallucination segment, night 2, and all the pictures are going like they're on drugs. It's from that point all the way to the finish line where even I've seen it 100 times. I'm just like, what's going to happen? I'm so excited of watching it. The music's great. The story between Salomon and Jacky is great. And you're watching them all finish, and it's just such an amazing time. So definitely, even now, watching it from that point to the finish, I'm still watching it as if I've watched it haven't watched it before. Yeah.
我自己就即係都仍然會去注重翻我自己個 part 啦嚇，就咁我自己都會係即係 go through 翻我當時嗰個心理狀態，同埋就係即係面對移民嗰個嘅比較複雜嘅心情。咁見到我一個人生嘅 achievement， 我都仍然會眼濕濕嘅，的確係。我喺啱啱舊年11月真係首映嘅時候，我再睇咧，我嗰個嘅 focus 轉咗去阿 Will 嗰度，因為咧我經歷過喺英國生活咧，依家4年啦，其實咧係經歷過一啲人生嘅低潮嘅，咁所以咧喺嗰個狀態咧，我會再睇翻阿 Will， 其實佢係喺一個唔係真係職業運動員嘅生理水平上面嘅時候。其實佢點樣再去說服自己去追求一啲嘅極限或者係突破自己咧？咁變相咧呢一個係我好想知道嘅答案，就係我其實個狀態會因為個環境會因為年紀而下跌嘅時候，但係我係咪就咁樣就話我放棄啦，唔再去玩越野跑或者係參加比賽咧？原來唔係嘅。喺阿 Will 身上咧，就係發現其實只要你真係喜愛嗰樣嘢咧，就唔好咧俾自己嘅年紀或者係嗰個嘅體能下降 而規限咗，而係令到自己唔再參與任何呢啲自我挑戰。所以咧，佢嗰個例子係令到依家嘅我咧係得到好多嘅鼓勵。咁所以係我因為自己嘅幾年嘅經歷之後咧，再睇翻呢出即係紀錄片咧，其實就係會好多謝 Robin 咧，就係佢記錄嘅唔係淨係一兩個嘅故事，佢係好立體咁樣咧，係去揾到唔同 background 嘅人、唔同年紀嘅人，佢哋其實點樣去睇自我挑戰極限呢一樣嘢，咁變相咧，我覺得喺觀眾層面都會係可以好受落，就係每個人有唔同嘅性格，咁佢哋亦都可以喺當中咧揾到咧類似自己嘅角色或者類似自己嘅經歷，然之後帶出一個共鳴，然之後可能咧會喺當中佢哋跑手之間嗰個嘅 interaction 或者佢哋嗰個嘅即係表達自己嘅辛苦啊，或者點樣跨越呢啲困難咧，可以從中得到一啲嘅答案或者啟發咯。係啊，咁所以我會覺得即係睇呢一套紀錄片，再不斷去睇嘅時候，其實我就會帶住好多自己嘅即係問題或者係經驗嘅嘢咧，係會留意多其他好即係其他嘅故事會更加多咯。
Oh, that's a really tough question. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I always have ideas in my head of things to do, but they don't stick around, either because I feel like there isn't enough in there to do it, or if it doesn't stay there, I'm not as passionate about the topic. Yeah, I don't know. I think Four Trails just came at the right time. Mm-hmm. It was. I did start the planning of it before the pandemic hit, but because of the pandemic came, it also meant that I could dedicate so much time to Four Trails. Mm-hmm. I still work as a filmmaker. I do commercial projects. I work as a cameraman sometimes, as a director or a DP. So I still am like working in these jobs, but because COVID hit, it just meant I could fully focus on Four Trails. And so I think it came at the right time for me. And because I'd done Breaking 60 before, I knew that if I came back to Four Trails, I can't do another, or I don't want to do another, short film, 40-minute. How can I make Four Trails bigger, better, into a feature that is going to, attract not just trail runners, but, everyone. And I think, watching streaming platforms and, places like that where documentary movies were actually, I was watching a lot more of them, and especially sport. So my background is sport. I did skiing, rugby, surfing. So trail running was almost like a natural evolution for me from other work into this. So yeah, I don't know if I had anything else on my mind. Of course, lots of little ideas, but yeah, I think Four Trails just came at the perfect time and just allowed me to fully immerse myself in the film and in their world. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so the aerial footage is definitely a highlight of the film. Mm-hmm. And recently I put out a video on YouTube, which just was the best footage that I got during the making of the film. So going out for like 2 months straight every single day to try and get each mountain or each location at the best possible time, the best light, the clearest weather. Hong Kong doesn't have clear weather all the time. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So there were two parts to the aerial footage, really. One of them was, trying to capture all 4 trails. In the movie, you see the route going through the aerial footage. I really wanted to do that because a lot of the films that I see, and just knowing 4 trails, they'll be running throughout the night. So mm-hmm. Pat Sing Leng, for example, is such an incredible mountain range, but you don't see it because it's at 3 a.m. in the morning. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to think, how can I show this even though they're running at night? And that's where I came up with the concept of, okay, let's map out the entire route using aerial footage. So that I actually spent before and after the film just waiting for the best weather conditions and then going out and then filming in. If it wasn't perfect, going out again. So that process took super, super long time. And that goes back to what I was saying with the training runs, going on them with the training runs and you know, also finding out that this is the really good spot to do it. This is the best angle to shoot it from. And yeah, building, you know, a mental database as well. But I also had help from other filmmakers as well who are very good with drones. Richard Kimber, for one, he was very good. And so, you know, our team was quite good. And then we also got a little bit lucky with the weather conditions during the actual race. The year before or the year after, I think, was rain, cloudy. Even the year I filmed was rain and cloudy. So we just got very lucky with the weather being as clear as it was. So we could, you know, put that all together. So yeah, the aerial footage was a mix of a lot of pre-planning of where to go to get the best stuff. And then the drone route and the other stuff was all captured before and after the event, waiting for the best conditions to be able to show Hong Kong in the best way and the trails in the best way. Yeah. Yeah, so the editing took me about 2 years to do because I was also going in between my regular work and 4 trails back and forth. So that was very difficult to do, having to constantly change your brain into each project. But the way I did that, firstly, I took every filmmaker's footage and took out all the best parts and lined it in a really big sequence. So then I could just sit back, relax, and watch the entire event from start to finish. And that timeline was 26 hours long. So super long. You know, I could, if people wanted to just watch it and just watch the entire event, you know, maybe it's like a screensaver, just the 4-trail screensaver. So I did that, and then I essentially watched that whole 26 hours and would slowly just take away stuff which either was repeated, not super important, you know, sort of like that, and then that would go down to 20 hours. Then I'd watch 20 hours again, and then that would go down to 15 hours. Then I'd watch 15 hours, and eventually I just cut until I got to 2 hours. And then it became a case of putting in the stories. So that was really difficult, actually, and it took me a while to really figure out how to tell the stories of the runners. Because they have a lot of similarities in sort of the way, you know, the perseverance, they all want to do as good as they can, but their stories are also unique. So putting them together sometimes doesn't work. You need to separate them. But then other occasions it's good to put them together because they can bounce off each other, and you know, they got different perspectives, which is quite nice when you have them bouncing off. So that was the next part, is putting in the stories, but in places where it made sense too. I didn't want to just at the very start of the film be like, okay, here is Salomon, Stone, Sarah, Chang, and just put them all there, and then here's the event. I wanted to find places in the film where naturally you could introduce them that felt right. And then also as a viewer, you are constantly engaged because you know, another character gets introduced and you're like, oh, a new person, I want to figure out about him. And that just keeps going. And you know, Chang got introduced with his podcast. Pong got introduced when you see him like attending his injury, and then it was a really good moment to put that in. And then of course, you know, Jacky's story. You know, that's part of the whole question earlier, like what part do you still get goosebumps or you watch? And it's, you know, when we rewind Jacky and tell that story. And you know, I get that question a lot of, do you regret not filming more of Jacky before or anything like that? And actually, no, I love it the way that it's portrayed in the film. You know,
me too.
Yeah. You know, you only came in 3 weeks before, 3 or 4 weeks, something like that. So really, really close. So you know, we didn't even have the resources to go film that. But the way that you came out of nowhere and you surprised everyone, I was like, well, that is your story. That's your story. I don't need to tell anything more. That's the story. And then as a viewer, I think it's really fun and really interesting to do it that way because you don't see him for the first full half, or first like 3/4, and then all of a sudden you have Salomon and Stone and Pong, and they're the breaking 50 guys, and they're all oh, they're not going to make it. So like a normal narrative feature film, maybe you have that moment where you're like, my heroes are not going to do it, and you're down, and then Jacky comes out of nowhere and brings you back up again. And I think that's just a really unique take to maybe a documentary that doesn't make it linear. As an audience member, you're like on the edge of your seat because you want to know what happens next. And so I just think that is such a great way to introduce Jacky. And that concept actually came as soon as Jacky finished. He got to the Green Post books first, and then I was like, oh, we have a new guy breaking 50. How can I tell this story? And right then I was like, okay, what if I did this? And I had that idea, and I was like, okay, put that idea aside. You still have 20 hours left to film. And then when I went to edit it, I went and edited it as I felt when Jacky finished, and it just worked super well. And I was like, okay, that's great. And you had the risk of, maybe people won't like it that you only see him at the very end, and they'll be, like, oh, who is this person? But I think it just works really well, and takes the narrative of the film, just notch it up a little bit. Yeah,
I think it's not just the editing, because it's actually the things really happening during that year for Trails, and actually nobody really noticed my running, So that once I really got to the ferry, and then just suddenly the social media just explode that, oh, there will be 3 guys able to breaking 50. So Solomon, me, and Pong. So actually, in the real situation, that's really surprising everyone during that time. So I think for editing, it's not just only the editing, it's just telling the true feeling during that 3 days of the community.
Yeah. Just to add on top of that, one thing which is evident each year, and why this event is so fun to follow and to watch, is that every year there are stories. So, who knows how many, but there'll always be stories. If you dig deep enough, if you follow the event, there's always something which happens with somebody. And that's really fun. So I always knew that when I filmed 4 Trails, I would have stories, but you never know what the stories will be.
Exactly.
And, the year that we filmed, we just had so many. Jacky coming out of nowhere, surprising people, Pong having his injury, and we never thought he would finish. We just thought he would do, at most, the Maclehose Trail. Salomon's story of quitting and coming back. So many stories happened that year. So, these are things you can't plan for, but they'll happen because this event, because 4 Trails, it just
unpredictable.
It's unpredictable, but it just breeds stories, and that's why it's such a great event. Yeah.
其實講真嗰句，我自己就由頭到尾咧冇理過佢咧點樣影嘅，真係嚇，即係因為我諗我好慣即係我跑步嘅時候可能有 camera 咁樣啦，咁所以其實就我真係冇理過佢。對佢嘅感覺其實就覺得佢好專業。覺得佢其實就係去記錄緊一啲我哋真實嘅故事嘅，咁所以咧即係我哋就純粹做返自己，咁我哋就可以咯，咁唔需要話有啲咩造作啊咁樣，咁所以我哋好開心係佢去處理成個 documentary 咯，係啦，因為就係嗰個狀態就係。佢有佢嘅獨立嘅思考，但係同一時間佢又唔會干預我哋。我諗我哋跑手亦都好，即係因為睇過 Breaking 60呢套片咧，我哋亦都會好知道其實佢想做啲乜嘢，所以其實當中咧唔會話有啲乜嘢嘅爭拗會同佢講話，喂呢啲唔出得街啊，咁樣就冇呢啲嘢，係啊，咁所以大家都真係一個互信嘅關係嚟嘅。
New project. I think my new project will be to have a break.
Okay.
Yeah, have a break. And I just say that because essentially I'm going into my 5th year of this movie. From starting to film, then editing, then releasing it. Then I'm trying to get distribution overseas, which is very difficult. But we're getting a little bit of interest, which is great. But yeah, it's been all consuming for almost 5 years now. That jumping into like another feature film, for example, is almost terrifying. It's like, is it going to be another 5 years, another 3 years of this big project? So I think for me, the next project's a break. But of course, I will still be doing my normal work, my regular work. I just, 2 hours before this interview, I got off a plane from Taiwan where I was filming with Stone, who is in the film, and he's currently doing an expedition through Taiwan at the moment, over 7 days. So I'll be making a little film about that, 5 minutes, 20 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
much more low profile. Yeah, much more low profile. But it's still enjoyable, I love adventure. I love sports.
Yeah, looking forward.
So I'll always be in this industry in that way. But yeah, big projects, nothing yet. But I hope so, and I hope that the next project, I always say this: if I do another feature film, I want to be just as passionate as I was about Four Trails. It is all consuming. At least for me, I lived it. I think about it all the time. Making it. That if I do another project, I want to have that same sort of energy. And maybe that's why the film is performing so well, as people can, they've told me, they can sense the passion that's come out from me into the film. So if I do another one, I want to have that same passion and hopefully the same audience reaction.
我自己咧就即係經過呢4年嘅外國生活咧，其實係整理咗自己好多嘅。我的確咧係擺低咗比賽一段時間嘅，因為我真係完全係迷失咗我個 identity 係乜嘢。咁因為喺香港以往嘅香港，我係一個越野跑手，但係去到外國嘅時候，我有困難嘅，我唔知點樣係可以再重新出發嘅。但係到依家呢一刻咧，其實咧我係會多咗玩攀山嘅活動嘅，所以我啱啱喺日本爬完富士山嘅。我係好開心嘅，係啦，咁啊即日來回東攀富士山。咁我因為呢一個富士山嘅 project 咧，我係再次跑翻步，係去 keep 翻自己體能。到呢一刻嘅我咧，開始咧識得點樣去同英國嘅4季去相處啦。我依家咧已經愛上咗咧蘇格蘭嘅冬天嘅，好多人咧係冇可能愛上到，因為咧係實在個天氣太差，跟住又凍。同埋咧就係亦都日照太短，係好易抑鬱嘅。我都經歷過3年嘅抑鬱嘅。咁但係就即係到依一刻，我係180度轉變咗，係愛上咗蘇格蘭嘅冬天，因為咧佢令到我強化咗我個人，同埋增加咗我好多嘅經驗啊，爬山嘅經驗或者人生嘅經驗。所以咧到今個暑假咧，其實我都會即係會參加一個法國嘅越野賽咁樣。咁所以即係都算係今年嘅第2個 project 咁樣嘅嚇，即係第一個 project 就係東攀富士，第2個 project 就係即係會參加呢個越野賽。咁所以即係但係唔會話即係做咩成績嗰啲，因為即係説實話就我諗我都過咗個高峰㗎啦嚇。但係我覺得就係好似阿 Will 嗰個故事咁樣，就係其實喺唔同人生階段，其實都應該要有一個嘅目標，有一個突破自己嘅一個嘅 project。去繼續延續自己嘅生命，或者係延續自己嗰種即係愛冒險嘅精神咯。咁同埋始終我自己經歷過4徑之後，其實我會知道咧，即係對我自己真正嘅意義係究竟乜嘢。所以咧，即係我依家都唔會想浪費時間，就係咧即係再係唔去努力。我反而咧就係好把握每一日嘅時間，希望咧即係做到一啲有意義啲嘅嘢，係對我自己有意義，亦都對身邊嘅人有意義嘅嘢咯。咁所以即係再次重新出發，再次 pick up 翻一啲嘅即係 adventure 嘅 project 咧，其實我就知道，咦，我嘅人生方向係要咁樣行嘅。咁我就係有咁樣嘅體會咯，依家。Oh, it's a broad
yeah, I don't know if I'm the right person to ask the question, only because, I mean, I've spoken to some people recently about documentaries and their projects, and the way that they are doing it seems like the official way, going out to get grants to help make the films. I didn't even know that I could do that before. So for me, it was purely, I knew about this event, I wanted to make a film, and I just went and I did it. I'm in a fortunate position that I can film, I can edit, and I can direct. So I had a lot of those skills that I didn't need to pay a lot of money for other people to do it. I could take on that responsibility myself. But yeah, I just went and I did it. And this is where maybe post-production or other things, making a first-length feature, I started realizing, oh, okay, I now have to invest in this or that, which I didn't have to before. But because I didn't, immediately get given, okay, here is an X amount of money to go make the film, it was never like that. For me, it was just, okay, I need to use X amount of money to get to this stage. And I, weigh up the options. I'll be like, yes, it makes sense. I should do that and put it in. And so I just built up step by step how I made the documentary, which, is maybe a different approach to how others have done it. But for me, that worked well. I never needed to just, throw a really big amount of money at it. But I could just pay in increments. Whenever I came across a hurdle, I'd be like, okay, I've made enough money from this job, I can pay for that, right? So, I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but if anyone is in that position, documentary filmmakers, I mean, the most valuable advice I can give is just to go out and at least shoot the first part, or like the first interview, or the first scene. For me, when I did that, that's when I got excited. So when I had this idea in my head, I was, like, okay, I like the idea, but as soon as I went out and I pressed record on the first thing, then I was locked in for the whole time. So, if you ever are, debating whether or not you want to do it, maybe that's all you need. Go interview the subject that you want to film or whatever it may be. Just do that, and if you have that feeling of I love it, then go for it. Yeah. So a film that I watched not too long ago, which I absolutely love, is called The Society of Snow. And it's based off a real story, which, as a documentary filmmaker, maybe that's why I love it so much. It's about a rugby team. I don't know the details off the top of my head, but they're traveling, I think, from Chile to another country, and their plane crashes up in the mountains. And it's all about how they survived out there. It's not pleasant, but it's very real. And that movie in particular, it really makes you feel like you were there. I can't describe how it is. You just got to go watch it. But if you're a fan of true stories, even if you didn't know that this was a true story, it stands by itself. It's just an incredible film.
我自己咧就反而係一套紀錄片叫 Alpinist 嘅。咁咧 Alpinist 咧其實佢係記錄咧一個後生仔咧，大約23歲嘅。咁佢係好後生就已經係成為一個 professional 嘅 climber。佢咧係用 free solo 嘅方式咧去冰攀一啲世界上最難嘅山嘅。咁佢最後咧真係都死咗嘅。咁但係咧呢套片咧，即係點解咁影響我咧？就係我會覺得我會想了解多啲，就係其實佢點樣去追求自己嗰個極限，同埋就係佢點樣去衡量自己嗰個嘅危險嗰個風險咧咁樣。咁所以我覺得就係佢嗰種佢當然自己好有技術啦，佢亦都即係對個即係環境好了解嘅嚇，好專業嘅。咁所以咧，即係我會覺得就係，咦？如果我自己其實即係當然我梗係做唔到佢嗰個嘅即係層次啦。咁但係對我自己去突破我自己少少嘅一啲嘅環境上嘅界限， 其實我諗即係都可以向佢借鏡咯。咁當然即係我會更加平衡我個風險啦，即係因為佢最後都不幸咁樣過身，咁所以呢一度其實都會提醒翻我就係，咦我開始玩呢啲登山活動嘅時候，我都要去平衡翻，究竟我係應該繼續去挑戰自己啊，定係我要留一留，係要保護翻自己安全咧？咁所以我係都睇咗好多次嘅呢一套片，係啦，我都值得推介嘅。
想唔想再參加一次死境啊？
想㗎，真係想㗎。我會覺得就唔再係去關注究竟係破紀錄一定冇可能，因為太難破啦。咁但係咧就我會即係仍然想做完成者嘅。我亦都會想係透過再參加四徑咧，其實係叫做同新一代嘅四徑人咧，即係叫 share 一次個 experience 啦，同埋就係我會想就係再參加嘅時候可以話到俾人聽，其實喺唔同嘅人生階段或者唔同嘅年紀，其實睇下你點樣去 pick up 翻成件事，同埋究竟呢個目標對你有幾重要。我諗都係一個幾鼓舞嘅一個嘅經歷。其實係首先第一樣嘢係鼓舞翻自己先，第二樣嘢就係如果真係成件事係順利成功嘅話咧，即係希望都鼓勵到別人。